Good evening, everybody. System Chalk here with the 179th episode of the first YouTube run through House of Light, playing as the archaeologist. I've made it through the week, despite my best efforts. All right. I'm still focused on. So again, there's the headline skills that I want to level up. So these are going to be the sort of the hills and hollows and related skills, but I do have a bit of a surplus here in terms of quenchings and quellings and such. So one of the ways I'm going to handle this right now is just waiting on the 15 seconds and so to finish reading these texts, see where we're at, and then I can make some decisions on where I want the session to go. I think we'll have at least one more day to sort of digest all the lessons that I'm getting, but if I can, I'd like to sort of treat it like this is it, and I want a clear game plan for how I'm going to have these lessons squared away before potentially Numa arrives between spring and summer. In addition, we are still working with Mr. Kill to clear out the menacing phosphorescence, but I'll worry about that a little bit later. Okay, first of all, Encridion Tragularis, the poison manual of the Order of Assassins called the Tragulari. The Tragulari, dartsmen, were employed by the duties in their various incarnations to hunt down inhuman troublemakers. They developed poisons that even the immortals called Long could not withstand. Immunity to their own poisons was a constant concern for the Tragulari, and they constantly dosed themselves with substances that might build up immunity. Perinculate, the notoriously toxin unsanctioned ink, can be used as a base for one of these, serpent milk, with sufficient scale and with arts of serpents and venoms. So looks like I missed the memory out of this, which is a shame. I'll just set this aside. We'll see if we can maybe draw this out. By seeing what else we got. Okay, hindsight. Ablations in Iron, a monster hunting initiate of the hour named the Colonel, who identifies herself as Little Sophia, records the exhibits she has rendered to the Worm Museum in the Mansis. Little Sophia has never visited the Worm Museum, or even the Mansis in person, and evidently has no desire to do so. She mixes ink which incorporates the remains of her prey, writes her records in that ink, then burns them before the Colonel's altar. It is essential, however, to permit no drop of the ink thereby obtained to enter any portal of the body, even a break in the barrier of the skin. Should any fragment of the worm remain viable, it might enter thereby, and the hunt's ultimate conclusion be melancholy indeed. Seven Faces of Icarus. In the 1530s, the last abbot of St. Brendan's, called Roaring Richard, set down his conversations with the illiterate local cunning man, Red William. Red William describes the 7 forms in which he goes about and under the world: viper, cat, fox, eagle, dove, boar, and crow. Abbot Richard ingeniously fits all of these into a framework of solar belief. According to Abbot Richard, each of Red William's forms is closer to the sun and is increasingly winged with virtue. Richard draws an analogy with the waxen wings of Icarus. Hypocrisy and false virtue will melt before the sun's heat, and so sincerity and untrammeled expression of the self are the utmost piety. It's worth noting that only a year or two after Richard wrote this book, John Tregonwell was so appalled by the debaucheries of the monks of St. Brendan's that he recommended the monastery's immediate dissolution. The Concursum Diaries, the diaries of the explorer and murderer Lars Westergren. He's unhelpfully translated them into Frisian for privacy. There are map legends, there are maps of legends, and there are legends of maps. Aspects of the Mansis subsist in all of these, in much the same way that you can find water in a swamp and in a cup and in the sky. Westergren describes a series of expeditions into the Mansis. He focuses on the details of the experience, the colors, the vistas, the textures, rather than the practicalities. He does warn that the Mansis changes each year, although he assures the reader that the doors have been the same. Doors may close, but they never disappear, at least not while there have been mortals in the Mansis. We're like mice. And unhatched hymns attributed to St. Lucia the Eyeless, patron of glassworkers and name of the hour called Menascate. the hymns venerate every sanctioned hour, celebrating as the sun undivided, but also suggesting that each hour may become the next. Madrigad to watchman, watchman to wolf, and so on. The hymn of the phases celebrates the menascate from whom we do not turn, for the truth which is beauty, the beauty which is truth, and the perfect balance between the two. The hymn of the reflections more puzzlingly celebrates the menascate as the sister of Janus, mother of shadow, whose visage wondrous in emptiness can reveal all truths. There's the Sabbath hymn. Okay, so again, I had plans for all of this, but right, it was Path and Pilgrim, which I'm kind of questioning right now, but I guess Path and Pilgrim's the one with the rose, so we'll work with that. So I had a note here for sand stories, but that doesn't make sense for any of the current lessons that I have. It does, however, make sense for the remaining scale, which would be hill and hollow. So that's 5. Scale and moon. Okay, so again, I've got my work cut out for me as far as the day is concerned. Path and Pilgrim will be taken care of, so I think we'll just say we can take that for granted. So next up, I'm going to say let's do Hill and Hollow. We'll apply health towards that. So right now my job should be generating 5 more scale and moon. Now that shouldn't be that hard to do, particularly because I've got the confounding parable already. So let's focus on that first. So Singlefoot Songs is 1. We don't need to worry about any winter, so that should be 2. Moon and scale. Okay, confounding parables already here. Okay, so that should be 3. Okay, so that should be 5 for Hill and Hollow now. So that brings me back to stitching and binding and company. Okay, so let's say for stitching and bind, that's actually the easiest one because that's just heart and sky. So let's set this aside. Aha. Okay, so inks of containment is slightly more interesting. So let's focus on the winter that we can get there. So that will be 1. These are regrets. Hindsight's already spoken for, so we're on to Musgrave's sketches. Unfortunately, I think I'm sure. Well, no, salt should help. Okay, so that levels up Inks of Containment. Quenchings and Quellings is a Heart and Winter question. So on that front, we will do our old friends Storm and Solace. Nope, nope, we are out of desks. All right. I could try and use one of the phonographs, but I'm actually going to hold back. We're halfway through the day. I actually don't think it's a bad idea for me to maybe just hold back and see where we are for memories. So I'm feeling pretty good about where we're at in terms of using up these lessons, but I do want just a little clarity in terms of where everything's going. Traveling at Night, Volume 1, The Annotated Dream Journals of Christopher Olopoli, sometimes called the only readable occultist, literate, entertaining, bewildering. The wood lies outside the walls of the mansis. As any student of the histories knows, the mansis has no walls. Olopoli describes how he came to make repeated visits to a dream wood via what he calls silver dreams. Trying to think your way to the wood, he explains, is like thinking your way to being in love, but I did find a secret that helped. So I think, counter to my original intentions, I think I am going to use this with Mr. Kill, and that's just because it's a little easier for me to get pairs than it is for me to... I mean, it's not that hard for me to get a Dark Marrow either, but it does involve me using an element of the soul, and I can potentially repurpose this towards something in the... I could repurpose this to something in a salon. So in this case here, I feel safe enough to divide it among two. All right, there's Magathene Mysteries at level 5. So let's get... Basically, I just need to get all of these in the right order. So, Path and Pilgrim first. At last, I'm something, of an authority in this. Improve this skill to level 6. Excuse me. So just let the timers run down on these. I do want to make sure that the Edict's Martial is used to produce an old wound before too long. Again, I'd rather not do that, but I sort of force my hand by doing something silly. As it clarifies, the tincture vibrates judderingly. The technical term for this is growling. So I think in this case, I'll somewhat reluctantly give up the hell. Actually, you know what? I feel a little uneasy about this, but nope. And we always have the outside option of using the sweet bones to restore the element of the soul anyway, but if I can, I just like to make money rather than spend it. Alright, memories don't last long outside books, but it's made a difference for the day. So what I'll do here, just because the honey is taking up some space, I'll just use the honey here. Offer something to eat. I can offer my assistant something to eat. This will increase their aspects. It's also just friendly. Okay, and Path and Pilgrim is up. Now, I think we're out of... we're out of memories to work with right now, so we're just sort of waiting with the consider verb. But again, I don't have a whole lot that I want to do with that right now that isn't leveling up skills. So as long as the desks are full up, I can... well, I guess there's this desk that isn't used, but we'll see where we're sitting as far as memories go, and then we can sort of calibrate accordingly. Should have at least 2 rounds to go. Singlefoot Songs. Father Stanislav John Schaller, priest and diplomat, writes of his time on the slopes of Huashan, near the Grove of Green Immortals, but never too near. Schaller's relations with the grove are cautious. It's a library of the tree, but under the hand of the hour named Applebright. In time, however, Schaller comes to be more sympathetic to the Applebright, which he suggests causes harm only when so invited. The Singlefoots of the title are one-horned, one-footed hill things with sweet but powerful voices, powerful enough to open the mountain. The Singlefoots sometimes trample pilgrims, sometimes heal them, sometimes coerce them to enter the mountain and become Singlefoots. Schaller explains that when he found this last becoming too tempting, he decided to return to his homeland. The Book of Thrones, a legend of the Shadowless Empire transcribed by Alexander Peterhans from the annals of a secret shrine in Anatolia. In the first and greatest history, a subject of the Shadowless Empire of Persia travels to the west, to the kingdom of the Persids. There he becomes a protege of the tutelary Persid deity, the scarred man who lives in the dark. He returns after 7 years to put his skills at the service of the Shadowless Empire, becoming their golden general. After many years of peace, the heirs of the Persids move against the King of Kings in the Shadowless Empire. The Golden General will not take arms against the blood of his mentor until the King of Kings whispers a great secret of betrayal in his ear. He breaks his sword, forswears his oath to both the Empire and the scarred man, and enters the temple behind the world, leaving his life behind. Those Who Do Not Sleep, the Mystic Broadnax, discusses the origins of the Sister and Witch and of the Thunderskin. The Sister and Witch were born in 2 wombs, one poor, one rich, across the sea. The sister was stronger in the aspect of heart, and so their survival was assured. The witch was stronger in the aspect of grail, and so they were not satisfied. When the sister and witch came west, the red grail permitted their ascension, but then grew jealous of their power. It lured a great musician into the ranks of its names, and caused him to be reborn from blood as a heart hour, so that the grail might maintain dominion there also, but its victory is not assured. Excuse me. As I used to say in my youth, the day is done and so am I, but I've earned my pay. 7 shards. The Lionsmith, one of the 2 great hours of struggle, broke his sword into 7 shards. Natalia Brulot, 5th librarian of Hush House, describes the nature of each of those shards, allegorically and otherwise. The 3rd shard has been identified as with the cry of pain. The Lionsmith is a stoic hour, but we must assume that in the sundering moment, even he might have been unable to restrain his distress. Now the sound of tin under pressure we call the tin cry, a reason perhaps for the further identification of the 3rd shard as the Shard Royal. The 7th shard we call informally the Invincible Audacity, which is struck from the winning move as the winning move is struck from a memory, with the application of sufficient edge. Okay, there's the scale. So that should be enough for Hill and Hollow, but let's just collect everything else. Exorcism for Girls. Simple but forceful techniques for rousting unbefitting spirits, written in straightforward and colorful language. Blake seems uncertain at points whether the techniques are intended for use by or on girls. She clearly regards children as a nuisance. There's advice on the shapeless wood things known as raw prophets is typically practical. 1. Discourage them with buckets of water as close as possible to freezing, and with smoke of dried lemongrass. 2. Under no circumstances kiss them or receive kisses from them. 3. An effective formula is provided for laundering clothes stained with prophet slime. Musgrave sketches. Musgrave, 4th Baron Brankrug, was widely mocked as the Bleeding Baron and the Lamb de Wolf, but these sketches reveal a complex, somber inner life. Art begins in colors, grows dappled, finally is either mostly darkness or mostly light. Musgrave discusses the temptation of the perfectly minimal palest painting. He has so far managed to resist the temptation, but does guiltily describe success in using sights and sensations with winter aspect to create first a chilly elixir from flowers, which he believes he can refine further into a final pigment. I believe this should go here, but I'm starting to lose track a little bit. And The Deaths of the Moon, a historical tract on various forms of survival after death. When the heart no longer beats, the grail may keep the spirit in the body, and an appetite is indicated to sustain. Alukites are the best known, but not the only of this nature. This is the waning moon mode. The full moon mode is the intensification of one element of the soul to a point where ordinary sustention is unstable. Our protector, the generous of hosts, began of this nature, and its generosity remains ungentle. It is possible for the body's health or the heart's core to outpace the other elements, so that a static mode becomes impossible and growth proceeds in dramatic stages until balance remanifests. Okay, and yes, that does have the winter aspect I was looking for. So, the Hill and Hollow was the first priority, but I believe there were inks of containment, quenchings and quellings, and stitching and bindings for me to work out as well. So let's say quenchings and quellings is heart and winter. So winter, winter. Hill and Hollow is scale and moon. So scale for sure. Scale. Technically winter. Again, priority is going to the scale stuff first. Okay, so I need 2 moon. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Inks of containment needs 3. But I can live with working that out later. Inks of Containment should be the easiest one to level up out of all of these, so I don't want to overdo it. Okay, I'll use the health in this case, just for the scale. Okay, so Hill and Hollow is good to go. Quenchings and Quellings will follow next. Stitching and Binding and Inks of Containment are kind of the same thing in this case. So let's, what I'll do here, let's say I'm going to do, so I'm going to focus on getting Inks of Containment up. So again, this will be a question of winter and moon. Well, actually, so we've got 1. So I really just need 2. Okay, so I'd say Book of the Extinguished Heart is next up. So that gets us a Bittersweet Certainty, which is a winter. Winter or moon? Guess we could do Victory of Crowns. Okay, so that should settle the Inks of Containment. And Stitching and Binding should be a piece of cake, but oops. Yeah, I need to make sure that I'm setting aside this stuff properly as well. So, Quenchings and quellings. We'll use a heart. Stitching and binding, we'll use a sky. And I guess that means inks of containment needs to use. So this is my free collection. Okay, so focusing on the music stuff first. So that's one. Two. Three. And then that should be sufficient for stitching and binding, so that leaves me with a shaft, a health, and a metal to play around with. Which makes me wonder, do I want to try and do something with pentiments and precursors? Actually, so the more I think of that, if the goal was to level up Path and Pilgrim and Hill and Hollow, technically pentiments and precursors is no longer relevant. Because I needed Hill and Hollow at 6, which I'm now achieving. And I wanted Path and Pilgrim. I believe I wanted that at 6 as well. Yep. So it really is Sand Stories that I needed. Horns and Ivories is in the same boat. Yeah, so these are free agents, which is fine. Like I'm not opposed to reading them, but they're just not. They don't have the same urgency as some of these others. So maybe for the remaining day, I should focus on any rose improvements I can get. Preliminal meter sure sounds good. Yeah, novel method for invocation and contrition. Question is, can I pull it off? I don't know if I have a desk with rows right now. Oh, yes I do. Okay, so this is just window shopping right now, but... So for that we would add the lunar globe. I think we could do it. I might even want to do it today, actually. Yeah, I like that idea. Okay, so the way I will accomplish that, I'll restore the Fet when I get a chance. I can wait a little while on like the health, the shaft, and the metal. I really picked some winners here. The shaft and the metal can only really earn me money at the Sweet Bones. I don't really use them with any of these other areas. Maybe what I can do then, at least with the metal, I can do some cooking. So maybe I'll start preparing for the next salon. Oh yeah, and then the shaft can just read Enchiridion Triangularis, so I know what memory it gives me. All right, the sustenance has boosted their aspects appropriately. So I suppose the question here is there any value to me talking to Mr. Kill? I guess there is, because I'm technically looking for another Rose memory. So I'll at least do that until we're locked into to some last decisions. The skill is now level 6. Its power aspects have also increased. So this one should be for quenchings and quellings. Just double checking where I am there. Yep. Okay. Move gingerly while the pain lasts. So at least we got the old wound back, although I gave up a element of the soul I would have preferred not to for that. So I think I have decided I am going to get the FET back today. I don't think the revelation does anything for me, but in this case I'm happy to just get the extras from Mr. Kill at this point. Sometimes you just need a memory for an input, so I will I'll hang on to those. We also have something we need to take overnight, so right, better now. So yeah, this is going to make for some interesting a bit of an interesting game in terms of how I want to allocate the various resources. Let's start by getting the last memories. So, Book of the Extinguished Heart. In the days of the Shadowless Kings, Ennis Lasley was executed for prophesying the division of the sun. If any of his captors grew long, they probably feel rather abashed now. Zali indicates that the sun will be divided in the Mallory by the Forge of Days, armed with the love in her heart. Love will not be the cause of the sun's death, but rather envy. Envy will not be the cause of the sun's death, but rather thirst. Thirst shall not be the cause of his death, but curiosity. Curiosity shall not be his end, rather will it be love. Okay. Intimation of the Skin. Fiendishly complex, weirdly distorted illustrations of Congress and anatomy by the haunted visionary painter Niels Frederick Malsker. Malsker illuminates the evolutions of the names of the Grail with unfortunate clarity. It seems that a lovely who consumes an ivory becomes an ivory, a lovely who consumes a thirstly becomes a thirstly, a lovely who consumes a name of another hour might take its place. In the penultimate illustration, a lovely grapples with a fungoid knot that can only be a name of the crowned growth. The lovely's mouth and other portals gape wide, and the growth name is already partially engulfed, but it seems that Malsker couldn't bring himself to illustrate the result, and the final illustration is only a scrawled, bloated obscurity. The Victory of Crowns. Erratic accounts by one Aaron of the hunting and consumption of supposed immortals by shadowy assassins, published in the late 19th century. The assassins are, according to Aaron, the agents of a power called the Coronel, a soldier of the secret masters. The accounts date back to Roman times. Aaron's scholarship is dubious, but she, writes pithily. Incidents of sudden and violent death are interspersed with aphorisms. Hours don't dream, long try not to. So this should be for the Inks of Containment. Unhatched Hymns. Hymns attributed to St. Lucia the Eyeless, patron of glassworkers, and name of the hour called Menascate. The hymns venerate every sanctioned hour, celebrating them as the sun undivided, but also suggesting that each hour may become the next. Madrigad to watchman, watchman to wolf, and so on. The Hymn of the Phases celebrates the Menascate from whom we do not turn, for the truth which is beauty, the beauty which is truth, and the perfect balance between the two. The Hymn of the Reflections, more puzzlingly, celebrates the Menascate as the sister of Janus, mother of Shadow, whose visage wondrous in emptiness can reveal all truths. Perugian Diaries. In 1907, at the age of 18, Christopher Lopolis left Strathcoyne's household to study theology at the University of Perugia in Italy, enrolling under the name Christopher Strathcoyne. For 4 years since his adoption from a Bristol orphanage, Lopolis served as Strathcoyne's pupil and protege, but his relationship with this austere and secretive man was always complicated. His journal confides, "I still think Fraser's intentions are good, certainly he agrees, but I never understood the final goal of his investigations. He was never prepared to enlighten me, and good intentions or not, I can no longer bear the stream of eyes. We have agreed to part almost amicably." Alapoli left Perugia in 1909 without completing his degree. He had long lost interest in his studies, and the latter half of his journal is concerned with his studies of Umbrian folk songs and notes towards his own compositions, which are of widely varying quality. One of the better ones, In the Marshes of Night, suggests he visited the site of Old Lake Fucinus near Ortuccio. Alright, so I'm not quite ready to sort these. Yeah, I don't think there's a specific order in which I'm going to handle these. Although I guess I did get the alert for the... I did get the alert for the end of the day. So I think the time has come for me to make some choices in terms of how I want to use my aspects. So I can't do anything with... let's not use up the rows desks. So there's not a whole lot I can do with the shaft. In this case, Enchiridion Triangularis is just a chance for me to learn what that book gives me in terms of a memory. I'm going to leave Gospel of Zacchaeus and the Geminiad Volume 2 for another time. I haven't worked out a guest list for the next Salon, so let's take a minute here and decide. Let's do Fraser and Daymare. Coquille. Arthur. Actually, let's add Douglas. So, figure probably Orange Jumble. Actually, so if I've got Fraser, I can do beef. Then that gives me the game chips. So then it's just a question of Grail and Edge. Cool. All right. Roast a beef joint, a dish with edge, forge, heart, and scale. Acrid marrow will take care of the edge, and then that means I need a grail dessert. But I think I can supply that. Do I have anybody getting me my rose? I do not. Okay, so that's going to be the job for the shaft. And I will do a confounding parable for that. I don't know if I have any almonds for the orange jumble. Okay, that's my bad for not being prepared. I know I'm over time, but I'm actually going to take a second here. Let's just see. Scrambled egg is an option. Pheasants. I have a few options here. I'm wondering if I can just get away with fudge. But then where's my butter? Okay. Alright, mix creamed sugar, an ingredient for a higher purpose. The skill is now level 5. Its power aspects have also increased. So, up next. Inks of Containment. Another fruit plucked from Knowledge's tree. Improve the skill to level 4. I realize I'm really going over here, but we've got... if I can just lock in this last level up and then queue up the book reading. Those are the sorts of things I'm likely to forget. Well, this gives me something to read overnight, so we will get Mr. Kill to open the menacing phosphorescence. The pumps have drained enough water to splash through, but everything is spatched and splotted with sticky, alien, wondrous, mesmeric light. Excuse me. When I retreat, I find the same glow on my boots. Whatever I do, I should not do it hastily. So 34 seconds, and then we can read the book. Skill is now level 4. Its power aspects have also increased. Stitching and binding. Another fruit plucked from Knowledge's tree. So it's a little funny that I displaced Sand Stories for these, because obviously Sand Stories is going to be jumping up a little bit, but not quite yet. Night is fallen, dawn will come soon. Intuition. Cool. Ear, gossip, foresight, patterns, hindsight, intuitions. Amusingly enough, also a source of my rose, so... The snare of the tree collected proverbs of Aunt Mopsy. Once in the wood we call a visit, twice in the wood we call a journey, thrice we call coming home. Every timber has its knots, the straight and crooked both. Every weave is more absence than thread. You can't keep nowhere out any more than you can keep somewhere in. When the cuckoo learns the nightingale's song, our sleep is sweeter than honey. Better now. Bake an acrid stuffed marrow, a dish with edge, heart, and nectar. Guess we'll use the olive division. Mix creamed sugar, an ingredient for a higher purpose. It's obviously not a final state, but I'll just put it here as a reminder. Precursor to sticky toffee pudding with bread and to fudge without bread, both notorious as founding crimes of 20th century culinary debauchery. And we've roasted a roast beef joint, so again, we'll put the dripping off to the side. Roast beef, our fathers of old were robust, stout, and strong, and kept open house with good cheer all day long, which made their plump tenants rejoice in this song. Oh, the roast beef of old England, and old English roast beef. All right, so we will go to Tan's desk with Fett. I'll use an intuition here just because that's one that's easier to replace. We will take the novel method of invocation and contrition. Eric Payan. Was it Sky Stories? Yep. And we were one short, so we need the silvered globe, lunar globe. There we go. I can master this mystery. Enough rows to match mystery rows. And I believe that is everything we need for the day. We've got 14 seconds, so I might as well finish off that last item. As much as I'd love to do a cliffhanger for this, we've already read the leading items, so... And then... I don't know if I want to use Mrs. Kill to open up the honeyed forbidding. We may want to leave that for summer. Deep Light Caves. When the gods from stone were swept away, the Carapace Cross, who had served them, were swept away too. The Seglas kind, the Wimfota kind, the Gladerflog kind, all those wise and mighty ones are gone into nowhere or hiding or us. Here in the fire-warmed waters, away from the justice of sunlight, their legacy quietly thrives. I always thought that this was the individual referred to in the Cucurbit Prisoner Diaries. So we get the Deep Light Corals. It's an Evolve via Bosk, and it also allows us to use memories, elements of the soul, for Nectar, Rose, Scale, or Moon tasks. We have the Pulsing Darkness. If the Isle had a heart, we would hear its pulse. So this is a 15 moth, 15 scale challenge. This is definitely one that calls for Skin Shuck Mead. But yeah, because I said we were going to do the sealed vaults last, it's 2 more rooms, 114, 115, and I'm feeling pretty good about our chances of opening those up. So, thank you for watching this extended session. I think it's pretty clear what we're going to be doing for the last day of spring. I'm going to need to make sure... Well, so I'm going to have more of the... I don't even remember what... right, preliminal meter. So, actually, you know what? This might be just enough to get Sand Stories where I wanted. That would be great if it did. Otherwise, it's preliminal meter, so that's going to be Knock and Rose. We don't really have much use for Knock. I believe we'd probably move Inks of Power and Pearl. Oh, right. Pearl and Tide also uses Rose. So, in that case, we'd probably just push up Pearl and Tide. Anyways, very clear that we're going to want to use the Confounding Parables, so we will dream on that memory. Whatever we get done, again, the sort of tasks that I'd set myself in terms of leveling up various memories. Actually, I can start erasing a lot of these. So we got my Path and Pilgrim, we got my Hill and Hollow. So the remaining tasks would be 2 levels of Sand Stories, 1 for Insects and Nectars, which would be Moon or Nectar, and then 7 for Pearl and Tide, which would be Moon or Rose. That, as you may notice, I found out that basically the way that I worked out the paths that I've got here, unless I really want to adjust it, Pearl and Tide is at the top of Nyctodromy. I maybe mentioned this before, but I in between episodes, I sort of worked out the path through it. And by design or by coincidence, Pearl and Tide has to go to the very top. So anyways, again, thank you very much for watching. I'll be back on Monday to put all of this into play. Until then, take care. Have a nice weekend.